now I'm I'm with you from my bed because I broke my left knee patella, and so it's now teaching me to embrace my vulnerability to a core 100%. I need help to get down. I need get help to go, get onto bed. I'm with you from my bed because I'm doing it with grace and doing it in accepting the whole eldership. And because just has been a challenge. And giving was very, very easy for me, but receiving help and all that.
Yeah.
And in the wisdom sense, I kind of, in my own journey, I realized that it has to reach more and more people. I have to, whatever I do is not enough for the way things are with women, the universe, the ecology, all that. And so a person, I just don't know how to work through Insta and Facebook and all that. I'm going to be using them from July and working with it with an intention of teaching to practice. So every teaching helps women to practice and create a community of practice to be there for each other. So I have no idea how I will do it. It's a new learning, new lessons to be learned, but I'm very positive the wisdom has to move on. So it has been a long journey. That's where I am.
I really
think. Oh,
go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I resonated with so much of what you were saying particularly about the interdependence, because that's been a real and is a challenge and is starting to be more of a challenge for me. And I think, all of this it's so interesting when you were talking about your culture and how elders have this esteemed role with a lot of responsibility. And here in the United States, not in every community, but in many communities, it's exactly the opposite. We kind of like just disappear, So just recently, I've had an experience where I went through a stage where I kind of gave up teaching. This is kind of how my life has gone, that I do something, I'm involved with it, and then it gets to the end of the cycle, and it's very painful for me to let it go. So it was really hard in a way for me to let teaching go. I just turned 76, and I've been kind of retired for about almost 10 years now. But in the letting go and saying, I don't know anything anymore, I have to begin again, all of a sudden, especially in the pandemic, I had new communities that I got involved with. And a lot of them had younger people in them, and they wanted an elder. And that was a real question for me. It's like, what does that really mean? And it's been such a gift to be able to realize how much I've learned over this long life, how much I still have to learn, but that communities form and reform, and that because I've experienced so many things and I have a longer perspective, I can see my own usefulness, and that's a real gift right now for me, is to honestly understand that is our job in the world right now, is to say what we know, and to say it, with compassion and with understanding and with love and with care and attention. But it's both a gift and I really do understand it as a responsibility now.
So I would share the same sentiments as you, Dianne, and wow, because I was born and raised in New York, and in the culture that I grew up in, your elders were put aside. Oh, they're older now, so let's remove them from the family, let's set them aside. And it wasn't until I met my first grandmother, my first indigenous grandmother of the Ojibwe, that I had and learned another viewpoint for embracing eldership. And I saw how she was the leader within her community. And I saw the grave responsibility when I first witnessed, someone coming to her, giving her tobacco and basically saying, "Grandmother, will you pray for me? And will you pray for my family? This is what's taking place." And so when I witnessed that responsibility, and she took me aside and I helped pray with her for that family. And the first question I asked was, wow, how do you handle that responsibility? It must be such a grave responsibility to be the focal point for the community. And what she shared back with me was that I never looked at it that way. I just am what I am. And that was a turning point for me. So going through my life, it was the first time I looked forward to really embracing my eldership. I could not become a grandmother until I had gray hair. I'm like, where's my gray hair? Where's my gray hair? And, the activities that we had to go through prior to initiation. So in that journey, I learned that the more that I understood my life lessons, and the more that I gained and gleaned perspective on finding balance in my own life, would help tremendously for others. The more that I was capable of listening and really just listening without attachment and without judgment, the more that I was able to help lift others up. Because not everybody wants to be told what to do. They just want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to be felt. So as I gleaned this and as I understood this, it just made me feel so proud to want to be that elder and to embrace the eldership, because I had something to share. And in the simplicities of listening and speaking and just saying, well, this is how I learned that lesson. I can't say that's what is going to happen, but here's what I can give to you from my experiences. It made all the difference in the world. So I love this journey. I love the journey as I continue it. And it's a grave responsibility. And I just embrace it with all my heart.
Thanks to all the three of you. There is so much of differences in what you're saying, and there's such similarity in the emotions and the feelings, no matter where we are coming from. I grew up in a family where Shakti was everywhere. I mean, not just in our puja room or in the temples we visited, but in the women of the family, both the highly educated ones, the ones who had not even passed class 3. So for me, there was these two worlds where the women went out. They were doctors, they were teachers, they were lawyers, and they were there. And then there was the grandmother who was in the kitchen most of the time, but funnily enough, she ruled the roost. And I remember watching her, and my grandfather would kind of socially put her down in the drawing room, and I would get very agitated because I'm the convent educated girl. I mean, how could this happen to my grandmother, a woman? And she would call me and say, don't be stupid. You know what? Your grandfather may be saying all this, but just wait. Whatever I say from the kitchen is what is reflected in the drawing room. So don't get carried away by the obvious. I mean, that was a huge lesson for me, that You don't have to be out in the world, strident, screaming feminism, wearing your pants and burning the bra and walking around. You could just be in your Shakti, doing what you're doing and ensuring what you want is what is happening. And I love the men to think that they are doing the job. It doesn't matter, right? So I grew up at a time when the hippies were just hitting us, and Coca-Cola and the Beatles, and there was such a churn from our mother's time to our time. I come from a doctor's family. My parents were both doctors. And we were in convent, and of course, the nuns taught us things, some of them very beautiful, some of them in retrospect, not very nice, because in a very subtle way, there was a cultural assault on whatever we held precious was just erased. And therefore, that sense of shame very subtly was put into us that if you wore bindi and went to school, you were like, you're a country bumpkin. You should be modern. So those subtleties worked. And then I went on, got married to an army officer, and saw this beautiful country of mine in a way I would have never seen it. I was in mountains and valleys and deserts and jungles, because that's how the army is. And I met these extraordinary women everywhere who, from a very social, feminist point of view, seemed to have nothing. But when you went into the kitchen and when you heard their stories, I touched their feet, because they were, for me, the embodiment of Shakti. And along with this journey, I also had my yoga journey. I had done my pre-doctorate in yoga and psychology. So I carried that everywhere. And when I came back, when my husband was retired, we settled in Bangalore. I was teaching, I was traveling, I was going into countries which are normally not yoga, honoring, but that was an eye-opener. I had so many teachers training in Morocco, in Turkey. Normally, countries you don't think will embrace, yoga, or the Hindu part of the whole thing. That was a real learning for me. And then when I settled down in Bangalore, one of the things that would come up to me is, our children are growing up without the grounding that my grandmother gave me. Many of the practices of my time as a child, what I've seen happening at home, it's no longer there in our country, especially in the urban areas. So I had this calling that you need to travel to these places of high Shakti energy, find out what is it all about, and from the esoteric space, embody it through the practices, through the teaching, through the living. So that is what I've been doing so far, and I've loved doing it. I continue to love it. And it's because of that, that tuning to Shakti, that I met some fantastic women whom I would have never met otherwise. And look here, everybody's sitting as Shakti in different rupams. We may call her Shamla and, Tara and Bhairavi, whatever we want to call her. They are images, but here she is in everyone here. And that's exactly what I want to bring to the people. That please do not idealize and iconize Devi. She's there in this world. Recognize her, different aspects of her. And to recognize that, you need to do things, because your energy has to be in that space to recognize. So that's what my work is all about. While it's an internal work, I do a lot of internal sadhana, because unless I do that, I'm in no position to talk about it to other people. So I'm so happy to be here with you all. And Rekha, I can't thank you enough for putting this together. It's not easy, but the time has come. Jai Ma.
Jai Ma. Well, gratitude is certainly what I think, what I feel every day when I think about my life path, which to me, when I try to imagine it, it's like if I suddenly got on the fastest train you can imagine, and it just roaring through the years and decades, and I hardly could have time to catch on to anything, trying to hold on to friends and so on. It started from a place in the US, growing up in reduced sort of circumstances and in a category that was excluded by everyone, that of being a lesbian at a time when that word was not to be said out loud. And then I was fortunate enough to
uh, touch into the civil rights movement that was happening in the US and learning from African Americans, especially how to fight back, that you could fight back, that you could find a place of your own and do something about your situation. And then feminism swept me up. And I started my own little movement of women and found that we had all kinds of graces that we were not, should not be always in a state of shame as we had been, but rather we were quite beautiful in so many different ways and useful to the world, putting together institutions that women could gather in and did gather in to teach each other about what it is like to be a woman in America. And in the course of that, I just grabbed a hold of menstruation because for my mother, my mother had wanted to be a scientist. I thought there was some science behind menstruation because it's connected to the moon. I thought there'd be a calendar in there. And I just began chasing it, this unlikely subject that's deeply, deeply shamed in my culture. You were not to say the word, and if you got blood anywhere, it was like, you know, the end of your social life for the week. And in the course of that, it has led me on this magical journey to finding the goddess, finding India, and my gratitude for all the indigenous people who have kept these traditions alive in the face of all the colonization. I just am infinitely grateful for that because it just simply saved my life. It's just, all of this just simply saved my life. I don't know how else to explain it. And my work then reflects all of this. It reflects all the communities that I have been a part of. And people then tell me that my work saves their lives. So, you know, it all comes around in the grace of art, which can contain the mystery and help to pass it on. And so it's my calling, really, and I feel it as a mission to just continue the art and the learning, the scholarship, the community in any context, and finish it. I'm 80, almost 83, and sometimes I feel like I'm 10, and sometimes I feel like I'm 108 or already dead. And I don't know if I never know if I'm esteemed or if people are chasing me around. Or if it's me, and it's never me, it's always her that they love, and they don't know that. So I'm grateful because there are a few young people who now actively seek me to mentor them. And I pull myself out of my interiority and do it because for all the reasons that all of you said, because it's our task and we pass it on. So for what it's like to be an elder, I really have no idea. I don't know. Gertrude Stein said, we're always the same age inside. And so I believe that, but every time I try to be 35, I get into trouble. And part of growing older is really recognizing how much fun we have, all of us, how grateful we all are that we're still here, because so much of what has happened is loss of people who aren't here. And we have to absorb that, and out of that grief comes just more art and more ability to laugh. So that's my story.
You know, I just wanted to share this also. I'm sitting here listening to everyone, and each one of us came to a point in our lives where we decided how wide we're going to cast our net. And so for the people who are listening, I would share this, some of us will cast our net and we decide that what's most important to us are our loved ones and our immediate families. And that's okay. That's beautiful. Your contribution is still huge to humanity. And then some of us will cast our nets, and then we will take care of our community. That's our surroundings, our local areas, our state, our country. And that's okay. That's beautiful too. And, that contribution is a contribution to humanity. And then there'll be some of you and those of us who cast our net worldwide. And even though you may not be able to see everything because the net is so large, again, that contribution and that care and that meaning is a contribution to humanity. I remember when I came to that point in my life and I decided for me, it was a casting of the net worldwide. And I love community and I love culture. And in observing culture to culture to culture and how I can make an impact and where my life lessons will be significant is huge, because what happens is that you don't recognize or realize your impact. All you know is that you're working from your heart. And those who would receive that work, it makes a huge impact. And even if it's just one person out of many, you've done your job. So part of eldership is to go where you're led, to do what you feel inspired, and to lead from your heart, to be unafraid of where that journey leads you, and to know that the universe will always take care of you, and to always understand that there is no such thing as wrong and right, but it's just the balance by which you walk that path. And if you can recognize some of those pieces, then you've embraced who you are. And then who you are is just how you grow to be. So, I just throw that kind of out there. And if anyone else wants to chime in.
Taking this, what Enolia is saying forward, traveling around the world, I've been to America and Canada, and to, of course, the Turkey, Morocco, and the rest of India, and Singapore, Malaysia, a lot of travel. But what I did find is that over and above the religion, country, etc., when women come together, there is an underlying thread that is common to all of us. We feel the same. We feel for our families. We feel for the community. We feel for Earth. And we all have the same angst of, oh my God, the children are moving away from the wisdom teachings. So I found this everywhere. And I had the opportunity of meeting elders of the Native American community. And I was just struck by the commonality between the way we have our community, our family, the way we develop our lives, and the way they did it. So much of respect for the earth, seeing her as the goddess, not just something we are living on. She's very much us and we are her. So therefore, the Shakta tradition of our culture, which venerates Shakti as the ultimate reality and the principle, it just hit me that everywhere, we are all going through the same thing. And if we could connect as women, as Enolia so beautifully said, that, cast the net. We may be with our community, that may be the small circle, and then, extrapolate, and then we are just embracing the whole earth. And all of us are there coming together for a common cause to bring our grandmothers, we are now grandmothers to this, a lot of people are listening to us, but our grandmothers' wisdom, which is passed on through the family practices, to the community practices. And if you really sit back and look at it, you will find, there is a commonality all around the world in the wisdom of what needs to be passed on, especially with women. So I think it will be wonderful if through this coming together of all of us, we could find that and also develop along that, while at the same time, we are doing it for our own country, our own culture, because everything is so beautifully diverse, so colorfully different. So that has to be honored. You can't make it pan-global. Then there's no fun. There's no joy. There's no individuality. But yes, there is a beautiful common thread. And I think if The common thread is women, irrespective of where we come from. And all our stories are told. There is so much of learning that is there that can be given to everybody around the globe, irrespective of who you are and what you are. And I really hope that this conference will lead us towards that space. Rekha, there is a question from Sari. Would you like to read that so anybody could answer that question?
Sure. I was wondering if everyone wants to speak to that, what the second thread, and I could also read the question. What advice would you give to people whose grandmother wisdom has been lost? How to regain, rebuild, and reaffirm it?
Yeah. For me, I grew up where my grandmother wisdom was lost. There was a tradition, there was Shakti everywhere, but my own education in, one of these, my school was known as Sarada Vidyalaya Girls High School. Ramakrishna Parahamsa was a great mystic where his wife was an amazing mystic. And their principles were, that is the guidance I got, because my grandmothers had lost their wisdom. They were only one grandmother, and she was in her rituals and tradition, which she wouldn't budge from, which is based on pollution, purity, and all that, and which I, as a teenager, couldn't accept, and very fiercely against, because it was divisive and all that. And as I progressed in my journey with this, I think I must have been a born feminist. My previous births also, I must have been a feminist. So always had this question of why women like this, why women this, why can't women do this, and all that. And what I see is that as I am working for the last 4 decades with women, I see is every one of us have the wholeness in us, and we can be that wisdom which we want to, which is all accessible to all of us. We just have to connect. We have lost our connection, and there are ways of connecting through nature. There are ways of connecting through prayers. There are ways of connecting through chant. There are ways of connecting through bhakti, yoga, mysticism. Anything is possible, but if our intention, and if there is a will and intention that I really need this wisdom, which is so much in me, it's all accessible for us. It requires a simple will, determination, and being a seeker. If you're a seeker, synchronicities come on your way, they take you. You really don't know. Your life just takes a path. Like Rumi says, when you start walking on the path, path opens. So it just opens, and that's how my life has been. And from where my mother wanted me to get married when I passed 10th standard to where I am now, it has been only because of that, because I think I have been a seeker without knowing. After that, I've been a seeker with knowing, and I remain a seeker. And when you seek, when you start walking on the path of seeking this wisdom, holistic wisdom, it just is before you and you can access it. It's not tough, it's just that.
You spoke
May
so
answer Sari?
eloquently.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking about what you were saying. It's like for me, it was when I finally felt this yearning and let myself feel the desperate yearning that I had for a different kind of a life, that I wanted something beyond. I needed something that I was desperately unhappy about how traumatic things were in the world, how desperate things seems to be. And that was 30 years ago, right? And the minute I opened my heart up to what I wanted, you know, Shakti just grabbed me, took me to India, and it has been like a miracle ever since then, because whatever it's, my life could never have been what I could never have dreamed this up. I wanted to know where I came from and how to authentically connect to who I was. And I, even in my, you know, sometimes in the United States particularly, we don't even know where we came from. You know, it's where did our ancestors come from? In a few generations, it's kind of lost. And I've been spending the last probably 35 years tracing back where my ancestors came from and understanding that if I had not been taken and gifted with this experience of going to India, even though I didn't understand it, I could have never understood anything about a sacred well, about the feminine, about, I could take my daughter now to Wales and explain to her from my own lived experience of having this devotion somewhere else, what my ancestors, what our ancestors felt and what they did and how it worked. It's just, it's like that little key that, that to me opened up this life force, this mystery that gave me and my lineage a different place to stand. And it was, but it was just taking the next step. I had no idea where that was going to go. Never, you know, it was just like, just do the next thing comes up. Okay, I'll do that. No matter how crazy it seemed and how, you know, how I could not explain it to anybody else. So I guess that's also something I would say is that if you open yourself up and you start getting the mystery happening, follow it. You know, just follow it. Just keep going.
So, Sari, I just want to tell you that grandmother's wisdom is never lost. It can be hidden. It can be kept aside for some time. The correct conditions have to come for her to reveal her wisdom. I mean, I'll give you an example from my life. When I was a college girl, I never knew this much that I know now, not because I'm an elder right now, but because I'm seeing the kind of awakening that's happening all around the world, especially in India. Since I work with a lot of Shakti circles, I find that the girls, the young women, are very interested in knowing not just their personal family lineage, but also they want to know the cultural lineage. They're questioning the practices, not with the idea of throwing the baby with the bathwater, but wanting to know there has to be a wisdom to this practice. Are we missing out on something? We need to delve. So when you go with that intention, that understanding, I'm noticing a lot of things are opening up. So don't worry, you will have the wisdom you are having. I mean, the very fact that so many of us are speaking and we are just 5 of us, there are like millions of us around the world. Okay, so like Banu and you know, all of them have spoken. When you start walking, the path opens up and so much comes to you. I always believe Shakti is the ultimate decider. She's exquisite timing. So correct at that muhurtam, everything will open up. And then there's a joy, there's an experience of absolute wonder and awe. So don't worry.
I would also share that if you don't take away anything, understand this: we are stronger together. This world, across the world, in my observation, whether through colonization, whether through the historical journeys, has taught us to divide and always to look at each other in terms of competitions, in terms of who can outdo who can get on center stage. And I subscribe to you that we need to really work together to learn to sit in circle. And what do I mean by sitting in circle? No one's above you. No one's below you. No one's in front of you. No one's behind you. We are all equally side by side next to each other with wisdoms, with perspectives. We can all be looking at the same thing and we all come up with a different perspective. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it right. It just makes it different. We've been taught to embrace each other's differences and to look at what's different immediately. We don't look at what's the same. So when I say we are stronger together, the challenge is to look at what we have in common, and that if we work together, how we can strengthen that, how we can move together, how we can move as a unit, how we can share that knowledge, how we can lift each other up, how we have skill sets that we can share that work together. I learned this. I learned this as an entrepreneur. I found my circle of women to work together, and we're giving of one another, not from what we can get from one another, but because my sister's success is my success. And when I help someone else rise up, I'm helping myself because of the learning that I had in that activity. This is a foreign concept in a lot of places, and it shouldn't be. I listened to the elder Vicky this morning, and I was sitting here listening. The indigenous have had it all the time, and we who come from the indigenous, we go full circle just to find out that our elders knew what they were talking about the whole time, and we had to rediscover it. And I subscribe to you that if you're young and if you recognize this now, you don't have to go through the whole circle to come right back to the same lesson learned, which is we are stronger together. When we communicate and we share that understanding, we are sharing invaluable information because we're sharing our experiences. We're sharing knowledge that we might have gleaned that we don't know how it touches somebody else's heart. All these things, we talked about women being divided because when we come together, we're powerful. We're powerful when we decide to hold each other's hands and to make sure that everybody gets there, not just I get there. That, I can't begin to tell you how invaluable that is. That when I sit in circle and I look at my sisters and that we all get lifted up from the knowledge that's been shared. We all make a commitment to do what's best. We all make a commitment to one another, to hold each other sacred. That makes the difference in the world. So I want to share that also as an elder, because it took me a long time to surpass the paradigm. It took me a long time to surpass to unlearn what was taught to me. As this is the way that things are, and this is the way that you get ahead, and this is the way that you survive. So I'll leave it at that.
Maybe we can also kind of move into our, I don't want to stop. I completely lost track of time as well. But it just, my timekeeper, we have a timekeeper, just reminded us also of the time. It's so profound listening to each one of you. And I don't know if you were able to look at the chats, but you can see how much your presence and your words have touched everyone who is here. Maybe as we are closing, is there, if you were to give one thing that, something that is very core to you, that you every day it informs you, it reminds you, something that you could share with us, that we can start looking at it and in seeing the wholeness of everything, in seeing that. Is there anything from, as we are all also journeying towards our own eldership, what is something that we can start incorporating now in our lives? Is there anything? I mean, there can be many things, but maybe one thing that we can remember.
I would
Yes.
say
Okay.
trusting your intuition and trusting your visions. As somebody who has visions and also sometimes hallucinations, like I've learned to sort them out and discovered that in my family there's an inherited spirit. The Swedish family that they keep it secret because they thought they would be locked away if they told anyone. So they never told me. But I had the vision anyway and got the spirit anyway, and then found out that my father had one, and clearly I inherited it, and it's my intuition. So that's one cultural way of describing what intuition is something that lives with you and follows you around that you couldn't inherit. And everybody has that capacity. Everybody can do that. But we're taught not to trust that. We're taught that, women make things up. But trusting it is such an important thing. There are times that I know that someone is lying to me. I just know it. And if I discard it, I'm going to mislead myself. And, there are other times that I know to go some particular place and at a particular time, and then something is going to happen when I get there. That's very important. Or that the cat is trying to tell me something, and I think I know what it is. But if I say it out loud, people will laugh at me. But say it out loud anyway, because then you catch hold of your own intuition and you can follow it through. And that's a wisdom, and it comes from ancestral practices, I believe, and comes from outside of ourselves, comes from Shakti, I think. That's what I believe.
I just have one little practice, which probably might help, is that whenever you are in self-doubt, whenever you feel you are inadequate, whenever you feel you are incomplete, and whenever you feel a lot of misgivings about yourself, just tell yourself that I am held by the great mother of all. You believe in Shakti, don't believe in Shakti, it doesn't matter. I am held in love and wisdom by the great mother of all and the Mother Earth. And I am held. I am complete. I have all my capacities. I just need to bring them up in me. And you say that 3 times and feel the wholeness and operate from that, you will see wonders.
The learning I can share with you all is, especially you're at that age when doing is so important. At this point in time, I understand there are so many things I didn't have to do. I could have been in a deep silence and just absorbed and embodied whatever is around me. And what I would definitely tell you all to do, and I'm asking this with a lot of love to you all, is that cultivate practices which help you go inside you. There is a deep silence within. It's not the silence of the tomb, but it's a silence, it's vibrant. You could call that Shakti. I would call it an awakened yogini. And when you're operating from that space, intuition, whatever we want to call it, you just know that you're being guided, that is your inner guru, and everything that is happening around you, you understand it's for you to become a better version of yourself. And trust that. You don't have to go anywhere. Just cultivate that. When you cultivate that, age doesn't matter. You don't have to become 66 to be a grandmother. Just that wisdom will come to you even when you're 45 or 40. So trust in that process and be in that space. Cultivate that space. It's there inside you. That's my guidance to all of you. Please embrace yourself.
I think I have similar wisdoms. and practices. And for me, it was really important to find divination practices, things outside myself, whether it's, tarot or I Ching, or, you can come up with all kinds, or maybe things will come to you. But it's really been helpful to me in my life to know that even though I don't always know, sometimes I just don't trust myself. And that's okay. It's like there's not a right way to do it. Everybody's going to find their own path. And for me, it's been, I go and I see, well, I think I'm on the right path, but what are the signals? What's coming back? Am I getting positive or negative messages? And I learned to sit still, to really, if you don't know, to just sit in the unknowing for a while. And that, especially in the doing stage, when you're going from the doing to the next place, the sitting still, I think, is probably the hardest. But, just following on what you all are all saying, that, it's really, you're able to trust yourself. You really can.
I guess I would say, dream a beautiful dream or you will be dreamt. I'm going to say it again. Dream a beautiful dream or you will be dreamt, which means that if you don't hold and bring forward that inner vision for yourself of what you want and who you are to be, then you will spend the rest of your life living up to what people perceive you to be. And that's no way to go.
Beautiful.
I'll leave it at that.
Maybe I just want to take a moment. Yeah, you all brought also that inquiry into stillness, and just for this to settle also in all of us. It's such an honor. Yeah, so filled with gratitude to be here and to be with all of you, to listen to you, to receive from you. And I can see that everyone is so touched, so moved. And now we are also going deeper into this, the being space. That's how I call this as the being, stillness, that inner, that is so much part of who we all are. And now, we move into in another 10 minutes. So I thought I would have everyone have some time. I know Eldrin, Olia, Bhanumati, and Rahima, they are all facilitating. And we also have two more elders, Poonam and Emily. They both are facilitating. And thank you for all of you, Dianne and Judy. It's becoming evening. It's quite late for you now there, in the US. And thank you so much for this rich.
Thank you so much for putting this together,
Thank you.
carrying on this work.
Thank you.
So grateful for you.
So wonderful. Thank you. I wish I could go to all the elders' sessions. I want to go to all your sessions. Another
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Emily. Emily is also facilitating in our elder session, and Emily is joining us from California as well. So it's late for her as well. So so we pause here. It's always so difficult to leave. It's like, oh, you don't want to leave. It's like home, I know. I don't want to
Come
go.
to our
I don't want to
We
go.
hug you and hold you in our circle. It doesn't matter. We are not physically available. Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
So beautiful.
So, yeah, so take good care and
And you
prayers
also.
for your health and well-being, and may you continue this work and keep bringing it into this world, and we will keep seeking you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye bye everyone. So I'm just waiting for our co-hosts. Are you guys checking with the breakout room? You all have access. Just many people will have to be added. Just look at the sheets. You'll have to, because not everyone has come into the breakout room. So we will have to add folks. So we're going to take some time with that.
Rekha, can we kind of move out for another 10 minutes and then get
Yes,
back?
you can keep your video on if you want,
Okay.
or you
Okay.
can turn it off and come back. So we have now time, another 5-7 minutes, you can come back.
Okay.
Yeah. While we set up and we explore at our end. And maybe one of the, it's who's checking the lists. If you could just show me, then I can give someone else a task. Who is, it would be better if the participant registration team and the facilitator team look at the breakout
I'm
room.
here from the facilitator team for now.
I'm here.
Okay,
from
and
the-
Shreya is here. So could you guys add people to that? Because you must have access, right, to breakout room?
So that's
Could you send me like the link of the file, or because I'm not sure which one you're using now.
and
It's the latest one that Kakuli sent.
you can give me the
The file is there, but it's not picked up people. So whatever file you have to assign people to the breakout, to the different rooms.
So, Megha, I think from the participant registration list, if there are any more new names, we have to assign them to the room.
Okay.
Because we don't have everyone added. We have very few people added. So I think everyone else who is here needs to be into the different rooms.
So we are still live on YouTube.
Yeah, we are. I think so. Thank you for that reminder.